So I recently did that series of goofy videos where I ranked different variants of different Mario species from, the Super Mario universe. And while I was doing that, I got this weird infatuation of just looking into variants of video game characters and enemies and stuff, because I'm just like that. And that's what I do in my free time. So in addition to that, I wanted to do a little creative aspect with it and make my own variants of Mario enemies. But I wanted there to be a little bit of randomness in it so that there would be some kind of challenge to it as well. So I got a random noun generator and I used that to make variants of all of the most iconic types of Mario enemies. So, we're going to go through them one at a time. I made this all in Photoshop, by the way, just so you know. And I'm going to be showing these off, explaining their designs and how I made them, and what my thought process was. So the first one I did was the Goomba. Just to make it clear, the reason I did a random noun generator to do this is because I feel like a lot of enemy variants and stuff, that's just kind of what it is. It'll be like a noun, then the thing. It'll be like water Goomba, brick Goomba, or something. So I did that, and for Goomba, I got the word chest. And I could have done a lot of things with this, but I was thinking like, I want to do a treasure-based Goomba. So I went to Photoshop, and I made this thing. It's sort of based on like a mimic from, I don't even know what it's actually from originally, like mythology or Dungeons and Dragons or just other video games, where the Goomba it disguises itself as like a golden Goomba statue, but then it actually opens up, and inside of it there's a shadowy Goomba creature. And the way this would function as an enemy, and this is another thing I'm going to be doing in this video, explaining what they would be like if they actually existed in the games. So this thing would be invincible when it's closed, because its armor is strong like that, but when it opens up you'd be able to kill it, and then when it dies it drops a lot of coins, because it's based on treasure and a chest, obviously. But to get the effect of the Goomba inside, I essentially erased the eyes, and I made a second layer of the same Goomba, but made that one entirely black, except kept those eyes visible so that you could still see them. And then I put another layer behind all that to give the sense of depth in the upper half of the golden piece. If that made any sense. Anyway, moving on, I did piranha plants next, and the noun I got was singer. So I could have done this a couple ways as well. I could have done something a lot more stupid, but I decided, because of the shape of the piranha plant, how it's kind of like a stick with a ball at the end, I was like, you know what, I could turn this into a microphone. And that's what I did. So I came up with this. I overlaid a microphone texture onto the piranha plant's head and just blended that in so it looks like a microphone, and I made it overall just very gray in color and like silvery, so it looks metallic. And I changed its leaves into treble clefs, and it also has little music notes coming out of its mouth to imply the fact that it is singing, of course. Also, here's another version without the leaves, in case maybe that looks better to you. And the way these would work in game is that they could either just be like background characters, sort of like the already existing Rave Piranha plants from the Mario Kart track Electrodrome, or they could be actual enemies that shoot shockwaves at you, or like sound waves. Then I did wamp, and I got the word guidance for this. So I was thinking like, I'm gonna make something, it's like a wamp, but it's a nightlight, and you use said nightlight for guidance. So I came up with this. It's a very dark colored wamp, but it has glowing eyes and mouth with light so bright that it's like spewing out of it. So this Goomba here, I'm calling it Goom Booty, not booty as in what you might think, but booty as in treasure. This piranha plant I'm calling the Pop Plant, and pop as in the genre of music, but I think that name kind of rolls off the tongue well. I'm calling this wamp the Glow Wamp, because glow ends with W and wamp starts with it, so it just becomes one word very nicely. And in games, they could appear in dark levels and just simply serve as a light source to you, but at the same time they would still be enemies, so if you get near them they would do the typical wamp thing and try and crush you. Then we have the Chain Chomp, and the noun I got was anxiety. So, the first thing I thought of was boos, because boos pretty much fit that word pretty well, since if you look at them they get scared. So I essentially just wanted to make a Boo variant of a Chain Chomp, so I made this thing, which I'm calling the Chained Boo. I forget what the tool's called, but it lets you like kind of smudge the area and make it look very wispy, and that's what I did to get that effect. I also put like a very vibrant neon blue layer on top of it, or not a layer, but like a filter or an effect on it. And I got this, and I also made its eye shape change so that it looks kind of sad. And in the games, this would simply just be a chain chomp, but obviously a ghost, so you can't kill it, and it'll float around in the air and try and eat Mario, but it'll flee if you look at it, so if you're not looking at it, it'll try and eat you. For Koopa, I got the word product. I could have done a lot with this, but I ended up coming up with something that ended up being really similar to the Mecha Koopas, which obviously are already a thing in the Mario universe, but I didn't even realize this until after, but I just kept it anyway. I'm calling this thing here the Scrupa, as in screw plus Koopa, because obviously there's screws in it and it's mechanical. If I'm remembering correctly, I'm pretty sure I actually got the key on the back from a Bobomb, just to keep like the whole Mario graphical style in place instead of trying to draw my own, also because I don't really know how to draw in Photoshop, if you can even do that. And then I just made it very metallic and made the eyes red so it looks more mechanical, and I also put like a shiny embossed layer on it to also achieve that effect. So this Scrupa thing here, it would pretty much be like a Mecha Koopa, but the way Mecha Koopas work is you step on them and then they kind of just become flattened, but then they wake back up and start walking again. But unlike a Mecha Koopa, you would step on it and it would go into its shell like a regular Koopa, and it could still be kicked around, but it would also explode after some time into a crash of metal and screws and stuff. For Cheep Cheep, I got the word city, and I instantly thought of pollution, so I wanted to make like a poisoned Cheep Cheep. And I came up with this, which I called the Beep Cheep, which I thought is a pretty good and funny name, since a lot of Cheep Cheep variants use that rhyme scheme, like the Eep Cheep and the Deep Cheep and the Cheep Cheep itself. This one, the word beep, refers to like cars, because it's city and there's lots of cars in cities. And this is essentially a Cheep Cheep that lives in polluted city waters. I'm honestly very proud of the way this one came out. I used a little like erasing tool to make little cuts and rips in its fins because it's polluted, and then I darkened that as well to make it look all gross and decayed. I made it purple since I feel like that's a color often associated with poison, especially in the Mario universe. These things wouldn't really have any specific traits to separate them from Cheep Cheeps aside from the fact that they would just swim in either poisonous waters or just like in sewers in a hypothetical city sewer level. For the Boo, I got the word location, and I thought of a globe at first because the Boo's body shape, if you can call it a body because it's a ghost, is pretty rounded, and a globe is pretty rounded as well. So I made this thing, which I called Globoo, which combines globe and Boo, and I essentially just overlaid a globe texture onto the Boo and then blended it so that it looks like a translucent, ghostly earth thing. But I kept the Boo face because obviously this is a Boo variant. And instead of appearing as an enemy on the mainline game, I thought this one could work as sort of like a Mario Party exclusive character, kind of like the pink Boos, which are Mario Party variants of the Boo already. And this thing, there would be a special item where you can call the Glow Boo, and it'll move any character to any spot. So kind of like how you can call a Boo to steal people's coins, you can call this Boo to move people. Then for Monty Mole, I got the word sun, so I just made a little baby version of a Monty Mole. I made its color scheme a lot brighter, because I feel like that kind of implies it's less age as opposed to like the rustic darker brown. I gave it little baby hairs on its head to make it look more innocent. And this would essentially just be like the blooper babies as they follow the blooper nannies in some of the Mario games, except it would be of Monty Moles, so these guys would just follow regular-sized adult Monty Moles around. And I called this thing Monty Jr. because that's a very Mario-esque name right there. For Pokey, I got the word lake, and I ended up making this, a very aquatic-looking version of the Pokey, and I called this the Lake Pokey. It's a very boring name, but I did that because there's a version of the Pokey already called the Snow Pokey, which lives in snowy areas, so I'm just going with that theme. So we have the Lake Pokey, which lives in lakes. I actually kept the flower on its head because I thought it kind of looks like a lily flower, which floats on water. But I also took the textures of some Cheep Cheep fins, and I put them onto it to kind of look like fins on its face, or just like gills, or just some kind of aquatic animal antenna things, like an axolotl or something. And then I made its whole color scheme more aquatic-like or swampy. So the way these would work in specifically a 2D Mario game, if they were to exist, is that they would be at the bottom of an aquatic area, or like a water level, and when you go to pass by them, they would rise all the way up to the top so that their lily on top of them just reaches the top of the water, and then you could use that lily as a sort of like bounce pad, or like the springs from New Super Mario Bros. And that would pretty much be the only way to bypass them, because otherwise they would just be forming like a wall because it's 2D, so they're blocking the whole dimension. Then we have Shy Guy, which I got the word literature for, and I made this thing, which I called the Scry Guy, because a lot of Shy Guy variants have that kind of rhyme scheme. Actually, it's not even like rhyming for the Shy Guy family. There's just a lot of stuff like, as I said, the Fly Guy, the Leaf Guy, the Game Guy, all that stuff. But this one rhymed the way I made it, so I thought it works anyway. Because scry comes from the word scrying, which is, I forget what it means specifically, but it means this. And then obviously Guy for Shy Guy. And this would kind of be like Adeline or Paint Roller, the bosses from the Kirby series, and it would just use its little quill to draw enemies into life, and they would be like little inky creatures that walk around. For the Wiggler, I got the word variety, so I just made this thing because it has a variety of colored sections, and I also got rid of its flower just to differentiate it a little more, although this looks kind of weird now, but oh well. I called this thing the Hyper Wiggler. They would appear in space and just kind of swim around in space. And although you can't see it in this image, they would sort of have the star, like the superstar ability effect on them, so they would be glowing and changing colors, and all the segments would be changing different colors. So they would be invincible and pretty much function how Mario does when he has the star power. For Buzzy, I got the word physics. So I immediately thought of a Newton's cradle, and I made this based on that. This is called the Buzzy Cradle. It's a stack of Buzzies that get smaller in size as they go up. And its name actually has like a few different meanings, or the whole design together, because a Newton's cradle looks like this. It's a little like physics toy or something, but cradle also means to like cradle something, like to hold it, and they are essentially holding each other by being stacked up on top of each other, so it's like a double meaning there. Their gimmick is that their shells are so heavy because they're made of metal that you can't kick them or spin them around like a regular Koopa or a regular Buzzy shell. However, if you do jump on them, they will fall over and then the whole stack will fall apart, but they'll use magnetism to reorganize themselves and stack back up. For Lakitu, I got the word thanks. So I wanted to make a friendly Lakitu, which are things that have existed before, like the ones that throw coins and the Lakitu Bros from Mario 64. So I made this thing, the Lakitup, combining Lakitu with 1-up, using the U to just merge the words together. This is a friendly Lakitu, and I took the green shell that he already has, but I replaced the black rings with white rings to make the color scheme match a 1-up mushroom. And instead of throwing spinies, he throws 1-up mushrooms, as you can quite obviously see here. For the Hammer Bros, I got the word inflation. And I could have gone a very terrible path with this, but don't worry, I didn't. I did this instead. This is Balloon Bro. There are a lot of different bro things already, like Sumo Bro, Fire Bro, Ice Bro, Boomerang Bro, Hammer Bro, all that. But this one is sort of like the water variant, because you have the ice one, the fire one, the regular one, but this is the water one. And he throws water balloons. And if you get hit by these water balloons, you don't take damage, but you just get trapped in a bubble and you kind of just like float around for a bit and become vulnerable to getting hit by something else. That sentence was hard to say. I decided to make it pink. I thought that just kind of fit, also because blue was already taken by the Ice Bro and the Boomerang Bro, which is dark blue, and the other one's light blue. I just thought pink also kind of fit the idea well. Then we have spinies. I got the word apartment for this. So I made this thing. It's a spiny, but it has no spikes. Instead, smaller spinies live inside of the holes in its shell, and they function as the spikes. So this is the hive spine, combining the word hive mind and spiny, or just spine. It's essentially a giant spiny. It could function as like a boss in a Mario game, and it doesn't move, it just stands there. However, it sends hordes of spinies at you. It could like shoot them out like missiles or just drop them all over the place, and then you must kick them at it, sort of like the boss Boulder fight from Mario 3D World. Then we have Bully. For this one, I got the word girl, so I just made a very typical like media female counterpart type of thing by just making the Bully pink. And also giving it eyelashes. I feel like that's something they would have done in a Mario game that they just happen to have not done yet. Kind of like with Histocrat and Queen Histocrat, it's just a pink version with eyelashes. And this thing would literally function the same exact way as a normal Bully. Then we have Dry Bones, which I got the word chemistry for. And this is honestly one of my favorite results so far, or just in general. This thing is called Bio Bones, combining Biohazard and Dry Bones. It walks around and leaves a trail of acid that is insta-kill, kind of like lava or just the poison in some Mario games. And you can step on its head, but it will hurt you if you touch it as well. Then we have Blooper, which I got the word queen for. And again, I decided to do this thing, make a pink female variant. But this time I didn't use the actual enemy. I used the Gooper blooper, which is a boss version of blooper. So this would essentially be like, as I mentioned earlier, Histocrat and Queen Histocrat from Mario 3D World, but this would be the Queen Gooper blooper to go with the regular Gooper blooper from Mario Sunshine. And I put a little crown on its head, and I also got rid of the upper portion of its head and replaced it with the crown. I made it pink, obviously, and I also put some jewels on the ends of its tentacles. And this thing would function the same way as Gooper Blooper, but it could be in like a, let's just say like a remake of Mario Sunshine. It would be like a secret boss where you fight both Gooper Blooper and this thing at the same time. And then lastly we have Spike, and I got the word heart for this, so very similar to the Lockatup, or that Lockatu variant I discussed earlier, I made a friendly version of Spike. Because you already have the Fire Spike, the regular Spike, the Rock Spike, and the Snow Spike, which are all bad guys, but this is the Like Spike. And I use the word like because he likes you and he throws hearts, and that's related to the word liking of something, or love, and it rhymes with Spike, so it's the Like Spike. And I made it pink because that's like the color that is usually associated with hearts and media and stuff. And he's throwing a heart. I'm pretty sure I actually got that heart texture from one of the Mario games, or maybe from like Kirby or something. And I put a little like blur effect to imply that he's throwing it, obviously. And I got rid of his shell just to say like, hey, he's friendly, kind of like how the bomb buddies, the pink Bobombs, don't have fuses. And even though I said this is a good guy, he could actually kind of be like a neutral guy, because he would just throw hearts in like a fixed plane, and whatever gets touched by it would get healed. You or enemies. For the thwomp, I got the word speaker, so I decided to turn the thwomp into a literal speaker. I polished it up a bit, quite literally, by getting rid of its spikes, and then I just overlaid a speaker texture onto the front of it, so that it looks like a speaker. And this, like that mic piranha plant from earlier, wouldn't really function like an enemy, but it could just be like a background character in a certain stage, so like Electrodrome, just something to suit the vibe of a music style area. And I'm gonna call this thing the Thwomper, combining thwomp and speaker, but also because it kind of sounds like woofer. Also, Thwomper just kind of rolls off the tongue nicely, and there's a Mario Party minigame called Thwomper Room, so it's kind of already like a thing that exists. The bullet bill, which I got the word wheel for. So I took a bullet bill, I got rid of its arms, and I replaced them with wheels, and it's now like a cannon. So the way this thing would work is it can, instead of just being like a bill blaster, which stays in one spot and shoots bullet bills out, this is like a one-time thing. However, it's scarier because it can follow you around with its wheels, and then it'll shoot off of those wheels and chase you. This one here is one of my favorite ones. It's the Bobomb. I got the word meat. So I decided to do this creature here. I took a meat, just a raw meat texture, and I overlaid it over the Bobomb. So now you have this. It kind of looks like it's like made of lava, but it's supposed to be meat. And yeah, that's probably kind of weird because it's a bomb made of meat, but yeah. And I replaced the fuse with a golden spoon. And this would pretty much just be an aesthetic thing. It would just be like a Bobomb that explodes into meat instead of fire. So anyway, that's all I made. That's pretty much all of like the main popular important mainstay enemies from the Mario series. This is a pretty interesting and fun thing for me to make. If you enjoyed this, consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. And thanks for watching. Also, so very sorry about the loud noise in the background. It's a fan, which is just extremely loud. If I don't have it on, I'm going to just burn alive, but if I do have it on, it's very loud, so oh well.